There is a coronation stone at Kingston-upon-Thames, which marks the spot where English kings were crowned 1,000 years ago. The quiet centuries have passed over the face of that still-honoured stone, but its story is similar to the tale written in the mould of our British countryside and country towns. The character of repose and order which the country reflects, does it not proceed from the ordered mind and heart of people? Ancient walls tell of old things reverenced by later generations, of medieval castles preserved and occupied for their traditions and associations, and symbolically of old forms and customs assimilated and adapted to serve new needs and standards. Kings there have been in England and Scotland for 1,500 years, and a king there still is in Britain. Like the aging walls of Windsor Castle, monarchy has mellowed, and with the national genius for ordered change, merged with democracy to produce a new old edifice to which the old traditions attach. May we date back the beginning of this new era in monarchy exactly 100 years. In 1837, there came a young queen to the throne, and popular monarchy as we know it began. By the time that the old queen died, full of years, after the longest reign in British history, the pattern was evolved. King Edward VII gave it his own imprint. His diplomatic qualities, Edward the Peacemaker, stand out in relief to posterity, but wasn't he Teddy to the crowds of his generation? Queen Alexandra shared his popularity, and note that in the scheme of popular monarchy, the Queen Consort plays as important a role as the sovereign himself. This has been made abundantly clear in our own time. Thus, in the great tradition of British queens, not Victoria, not Alexandra have surpassed the contribution of our own Queen Mary. For the 26 years of that eventful reign, Queen Mary, equally with King George, set the example and sustained the part of democratic royalty, of which we can at present conceive no higher expression. If we may pause a little longer at Windsor Castle, where these portraits hang, perhaps I may dwell on the importance of old associations in the national development. William the Conqueror built a fort on the site in 1070, and the royal family has resided here ever since. So was it surprising that King George V adopted the family name of Windsor? Tradition, which is the theme of my commentary, is in every brick and stone. Windsor is the historic seat of the royal family, but the birthplace of our kings has usually been elsewhere, at Sandringham, for instance. Sandringham was bought by King Edward VII in 1861 when he was Prince of Wales. It reflects the tranquil aspect of the national character, a country home where the king is a squire. Queen Alexandra loved this place, and here was her summer house, the Queen's Rest. King George VI was born on the estate at York Cottage, where his father and mother lived as Duke and Duchess of York. Logic leads us to Buckingham Palace, and if I have dallied by the way, it is to give you the opportunity in these almost the first technicolor pictures to be taken in England to see something in color of the glorious background to the coronation story. Coronation, after all, is but the symbol of our faith in the monarchy, of which these homes are the environment. The black and white films will miss the color of these pictures. Even we, in the pomp and magnitude of the procession, may overlook the color detail of these familiar landmarks unless I draw attention to them now. The coach is paraded ready at the palace, and the postilions accustom the royal greys to the forthcoming drive. The coach, with its allegorical paintings by Cipriani, seldom makes so long a journey as the 6 miles of coronation route. Built for George III in 1761, just after Britain's victories in France and India, it represents the triumphal chariot of its time. The figures are tritons signifying sea power. Months of skilled handiwork have gone into the completion of the coronation robes, in which Abbey guests, among them the Duke and Duchess of Marlborough, pose especially for this film. The Duke and Duchess of Sutherland shows how the robes of the highest rank in the peerage are distinguished by 4 rows of black ermines. The tiara worn by the Marchioness of Dufferin and Ava will be surmounted by a coronet after the Queen is crowned. Before the ceremony, peers and peeresses carry their coronets. Notice that the Earl and Countess of Bessborough have 3 rows of black ermine on their robes. A young page, Master Charles Vyner, attends the Duke of Richmond and Gordon in the Abbey by special privilege. The whole burden of the secular arrangements for the ceremony falls on the Duke of Norfolk, Earl Marshal, to whose patient and helpful attitude all those concerned in the occasion bear witness. Supreme him ecclesiastically is, of course, the Archbishop of Canterbury, who performs the holy ritual of coronation. There remains only the regalia to be viewed before the procession starts. Symbolism unites with tradition in these priceless jewels. The two sceptres, the Queen's and the King's with doves, stand for equity, for majesty, the orb. The sword of state represents armed might. With oil from the Ampulla, or golden eagle, the spoon is filled to perform the historic rite of anointing. But of course, the crowns dominate the collection. For his drive through the streets, the King assumes the Imperial State Crown with the Cullinan diamond in the rim. St. Edward's crown, which is placed on his head during the ceremony, is worn by the King at no other time. It is the crown of England. But it is more than that. The symbol of kingship now stands for the unity of an empire, of which the King is the only constitutional link. And so we go to the King's crowning. Martial music fills the ear, and through London march the troops of distant countries, far dominions of the empire, as well as the more familiar uniforms. Enthusiasm overflows and cheers wildly at everything. When there is a real object to cheer, like the carriage conveying the little princesses to Westminster, enthusiasm becomes positive emotion. Notice that Princess Margaret Rose is just big enough to peer out of the window at the sea of friendly faces. The Earl Marshal awaits them, and from an elevated position we can see the little party set down at the specially built annex to Westminster Abbey. Big Ben overlooks the unfamiliar scene, for London along the procession route is transformed, and another carriage approaches which is greeted with a special fervour. Within her glass coach, Queen Mary may witness the emotion which her appearance never fails to stir. Still the exemplar of regal dignity, Her Majesty drives in her own procession to the Abbey. She alights and passes inside wearing a crown, the first Queen of England to see her son's coronation. And to take their place at that solemn rite, King George and Queen Elizabeth are in the meanwhile beginning their triumphal progress in the state coach. The biggest crowd ever collected for a single event lines the route. What would you have given for a seat in Westminster Hospital with its commanding position opposite the entrance to the cathedral? The old abbey, founded by Edward the Confessor, has been the scene of every coronation since his day, except two. Picturesque bodies of men, such as the yeomen of the guard, precede the coach marching afoot, but mainly it is the horses' day. No hint of the internal combustion engine. So strong is tradition that in this day and age, the modern form of transport has no part in the world's greatest secular ceremony. So in their medieval attire, the King and Queen approach the Abbey, the King wearing his cap of state. The Duke of Norfolk, Earl Marshal, awaits them as they step into the entrance hall. And the royal standard is flown over the Abbey. Of the scene within, the artist's impression gives a vivid rendering. The recognition, when the King is presented to his subjects by the Archbishop, who in this next view is placing the crown of St. Edward on his head. Among the subsequent rites performed is the act of homage by the peers. The coronation is over. The event so long anticipated and prepared has passed into history to make its contribution to that store of tradition from whence it arose. The King, crowned and anointed, re-enters his coach. With his chosen Queen, he goes on his way to receive the cheers of subjects, wishing him happy and glorious.
We'd love you to subscribe to the British Movietone channel for regular updates.